Thank you. And next, we'll have a fireside chat with Arik Shtilman and Liz Lumley. Please welcome them on the stage. Yep. And here's the Slido for you.
Lovely.
And just as a reminder, you can go to slido.com, select M2020 Europe, and then the lab, and you can post questions which then Liz can highlight and they can address them. Thanks.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm Liz Lumley. I'm co-founder of a company called VC Innovations. We put together content and experiences for the fintech industry in London. And I'm really excited about this fireside chat. Well, actually, I think it's more of a bubbling lab chat with Arik. So we'll have a good conversation and find out all about you and what makes you tick. So I'd like to really set the scene first. And so very quickly, so everyone knows what we're dealing with, what does Rapyd do?
So Rapyd is actually a FinTech-as-a-Service platform, or if you want to clearly imagine it, is the AWS of FinTech. It's basically a platform that provides an API for other businesses to build on top of us almost any financial application. So everything from payment collection to disbursements to issuing a white label version of an e-wallet, doing ID verification, FX, like anything that you might need in order to build some kind of an application that is financial related, we provide in a single API in a completely global scale. So we operate in 105 countries across the globe. We are a regulated entity. So when other companies come to us in order to build applications on top of us, they need to only focus on their technology and their consumers, and they don't need to do all the heavy lifting that exists behind the scenes, like getting regulated, finding local partners, integrating to other companies, and basically trying to scale out their business in a very slow pace when they can do it rapidly on top of us.
So is that the problem you're solving, that heavy lifting in the back end?
Yeah, so the company actually started from something else. We wanted to build a consumer-facing e-wallet just in the European Union, and we stumbled into endless amount of problems, and we understood that basically there are no platforms in this space. So if you look at the exhibit hall, it is full of companies that do one thing, and if you want to actually to build a solution, you need to integrate to 5 different companies. Somebody that will give you ID verification, somebody that will give you card payment collection, somebody that will issue virtual IBANs, and the list goes on and on. Now, in 2019, it doesn't make sense that you have to do all these different things. It's actually equivalent to the cloud computing space that you will have to actually build your own data center. And nobody does it in 2019. And this was exactly the thesis behind us building Rapyd.
So I want to go back in time a bit to sort of your origin story. You know, what is your background and how did Rapyd really get started?
So my background is not finance at all, right? I'm a cloud.
Sometimes a good thing.
So it ended up as a good thing, but it started very bad. So I'm actually a cloud computing guy. I had a cloud computing company that I sold in 2013. And then basically I was bored and looking for the next thing to do. And I decided in a lot of stupidity to go into payments and fintech because I didn't understand anything about it, but I thought it's going to be easy and it's cool. And I ended up stumbling into every single problem that exists in this space. And I understood that it takes like 18 months to launch something in this space. And very quickly we understood that this entire finance space needs to behave more like the cloud computing space, which is you need something, you go to AWS, Azure, Google Compute Cloud, and you build on top of it. And it doesn't exist. We looked around and nobody does it. And it was clear that there is a very big play here on a global scale that allows you to build a platform that other companies, even if they're the biggest companies in the world, can basically come on top of this platform and build super scalable applications, because today nobody's looking to operate in one country. Everybody wants to operate in 5, 10 countries, cross geographies in Asia Pacific, Europe, Latin America. And if you need to integrate to so many different companies and go through compliance onboarding and licensing in so many countries, it basically means it will take you 50 years to scale your business.
I don't think I've ever met an entrepreneur in the payment space who ever said it was easy and I knew everything. Everyone talks about how complicated it is going in. So it's kind of interesting. But I mean, do you have a co-founder? How did you guys come together?
So actually the same team that I had in the previous company, we came back to Rapyd. So our original company was a cloud computing company called IT Navigator that we started as young kids, 22-year-old kids in 2003. And, we've been together since then. We like each other, very much, but we also fight on a daily basis. But we already know the end state of the fight, so it's good. And we came back, we built the new company with exactly the same team, same management. Even most of the R&D guys and product guys came back. So it's like a core team of like 25 people that have been working together for many years.
I like that idea of constructive conflict and knowing how to do the fights.
A lot of times I walk in the hallway and I hear people, fight in one of the meeting rooms about something. I open the door, I tell them I heard this fight in 2010. I know the end state. Let's move forward, and move to the next thing.
So I'm really interested in, not only how companies get founded, but how they kind of become big grown-up companies and scale up. And, obviously there was an employee one.
Yeah.
What qualities did you look for in that person?
So this is the number one challenge in scaling up a company. So people will tell you it's raising capital, it's getting customers, it's selling. It's actually not. It's all about recruitment, because you need to recruit people that have the scale to go up in the pyramid. So when you look for employee number one, you need to understand that this employee number one is going to be part of the pyramid, and when the pyramid scales and goes up, he needs to be able to manage other people. Because the number one thing you need to do is to keep the DNA of your company. And if you believe your company has a specific DNA, you need to make sure that the people that you hire will be the ones that basically hire the next people with the same DNA that you want. And the last thing you want to happen is that you will find somebody 2 years down the road that will actually manage your employee number one. And this is the number one thing. We're still looking at employees, because we scaled from 0 to 150 people now, and probably like 200 by the end of this year. And we still, when we talk to people, and I still try to interview most of the people coming to the company, even if it is a 10-minute conversation, is to understand that when they will have to pick up employees and basically recruit them, they will understand what type of people we're looking for.
Is it like a gut feeling, or?
It's a gut feeling.
Okay.
It takes 5 minutes maximum to understand if it's somebody that can do it. And typically it's, in the way that he thinks, how quick he thinks, or how he behaves. And you can understand if he's actually a startup guy that can go through this roller coaster, because yes, we're going up now, but everybody goes down at a certain stage. And sometimes people don't understand that business has also the roller coaster way down. And you need people that can actually sustain it, and they will not puke in the middle and will have to go off the roller coaster.
That's kind of interesting. That sort of resilience. They're also startup girls too, by the way. Sorry. I know, very good. So you talked a little bit about, the complexity of the payments market and how you didn't come from a financial background. Like looking at yourself as an entrepreneur, I mean, maybe even not just with Rapyd, what were some of your biggest mistakes, and what did you learn from them?
So in the first company, the biggest mistakes was recruitment, because we didn't understand what does it mean to recruit people in order to scale. So you need to recruit people that are smarter than you, because you need to give them the ability to make decisions on their own. And a lot of times when you start your first business, you're trying to find people that will actually do what you tell them to do. So I have a plan, I know what I want to do, this is what you need to do, go do that. So you only need to look for executors, and that's a mistake. You need to find people that basically they know how to think, they can tell you when you're wrong, and not a lot of people, who are looking for it. And I was 10 years younger, and I made this mistake by not recruiting these people that basically will tell me when I'm wrong and will tell me, you need to do this, you need to do that. And this time we basically recruited in this company a completely different group of people. It's not even comparable, from a personnel perspective. I wake up in the morning, I see a list of WhatsApp messages from my Asia Pacific team about every single thing I did wrong yesterday. And then my San Francisco team wakes up later in the afternoon and they tell me what I did wrong, and I like it. And so this is mistake number one. And mistake number two is actually fundraising. So people a lot of times don't understand that fundraising is a completely different process than working with a customer or building a company. It's actually a different mindset. And it's a super critical mindset, for startup companies when you go through fundraising processes, to understand how to manage the process differently. My first company was bootstrap, so I had no external investors. It was only me and my co-founders, and we can do whatever we want. And this time when we went through this fundraising process, even though we were, second-time entrepreneurs, we didn't understand the fundraising process well, and it took us a while to understand what things need to be done differently, and that was another mistake that we did.
So what kind of comparing the bootstrapping with getting funding, what's the difference? What was the learning curves?
So you need to understand that when you pick an investor, you need to pick somebody that you're getting married to for the long term. If you like it or you don't like it, you need to understand that these are the people that will sit in the room with you. You need to be able to pick up the phone and consult with them, and not only look for their money, which is a critical element, because money exists in the market, but sometimes a dollar is worth 90 cents, and sometimes a dollar is worth $2, and it's a very critical element to understand. And you need to actually get people that are helpful. So there is always this notion about how your cap table need to be structured, and it's not only about flashy names. it's also about people that actually you can pick up the phone in 2 a.m. and say, listen, I need a meeting with the CEO of that company, and they can actually deliver the meeting. Not that they know a guy that knows a guy that plays golf with somebody that can get you a meeting. They're actually the guy that picks up the phone and get you the meeting. And this time around, we have a group of people in the last round. We added the General Catalyst and Stripe, for example, as investors. And if you need something, you pick up the phone, even if it is 2 a.m. or a WhatsApp conversation, and they get things delivered.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a big difference between people who know who the people are and the people who actually know who the people are. I find that interesting. You talked a little bit about, in terms of recruiting, this kind of a gut feel. So I'm really interested in sort of the personality of an entrepreneur. What would you say were some of the traits that most entrepreneurs have? Like, how would you define it?
You mean an entrepreneur himself or the people that he's recruiting? Because as an entrepreneur, I don't want to recruit other people that are entrepreneurs because it's not going to work extremely well. So
only one entrepreneur in the room.
No, not one, but you can't have too many. It's like literally I a lot of times tell to my guys, it's amazing that you recruited all these smart people, but we also need people that will do the work, right? It's not the same. It's not the same type of people. So you need smart people around the table, but you also need what we call the working bees. And you can't have everybody that, strategic people that can think about amazing things and have ideas about which products the market needs. You actually also need people that can execute, and it's actually not the same people. So entrepreneurs are good at a lot of things. They're good about dreaming and taking risks. And like, Zach spoke before me from Played, they can think about, okay, this is how the market looks like. But on the other hand, they need to find people that you actually say to them, this is what I want to achieve. And they can actually go and execute and achieve these type of things. And you really need the right mix of the two different types of people. But if you want to scale the company, you need more people that can execute and less people that are strategy people. Because when the strategy people become bigger than the executing people, you're becoming a consulting company. So you're like a McKinsey, but it's not a startup. So you need the right balance.
I'm getting this sort of picture in my head, people that are willing to say no, people that will work, people that will execute. We'll sum up at the end. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that you're now scaling internationally.
Yeah.
What challenges do those bring up?
Oh my God. So we operate in 105 countries. We have offices in, Singapore, London, San Francisco, and now even in Kenya. So the cultural, merge that we need to do between different teams and constantly, people from, an Israeli culture fight with the Americans, that fight with the Asia Pacific guys, that fight with the British. And it becomes like a World War III situation that you need to manage on a daily basis. So trying really to mix between the cultures of the people that work together and bring everybody together to some kind of same work stream that executes, almost seamlessly, and bringing the local complexity aspects of what does it mean to do business in Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand versus the US, Europe, or Brazil. It's like completely different. And you need to make sure that from a product perspective, your product fits all these different markets, because you don't want to have a product for Latin America, a product for Asia, and a product for the US, because then you become, a very complex company that nobody can actually work with. So trying to manage the human aspects of the business plus the product technology aspects of all these different cultures, it's quite a complicated task, and you don't sleep too much because you have too many time zones.
Your 24-hour clock. So it's not international diplomacy then?
Oh yeah, it's constantly, I'm a firefighter a lot of times, because my job turned from managing a small team of building something when we were 20, 30 people into either managing diplomatic incidents between different teams that we have in the company and going to cocktails with the investors. So yeah, I became a type of a president of a country versus somebody that executes.
So we have a couple of questions on Slido, and I have a few more extra questions, but maybe we can answer some of them. Are you planning to work with Stripe in the future?
So Stripe is one of our investors, and they're a good friend of ours, an amazing company, probably the best company in the card space. We learn a lot from them. At the current stage, we don't have any short-term or mid-term plans of working together, but this entire space is based on partnerships, and companies work together. And except of the fact that I really like Patrick from Stripe on the personal level, and he has an amazing team, anything can happen. But currently, we don't have any plans to do it.
So what about, I mean, you talked a little bit about the complexity in payments. There's another question. What are the biggest bottlenecks going cardless?
Going cardless?
Yes.
The bottlenecks are actually the way that the banking rails are designed in most of the countries around the world. Because think about it, what the card does. You basically gave somebody the authority to pull out money from your bank account directly every time you swipe or use a chip and pin. Now, nobody has this advantage, right? The cards are the only ones that can actually go and debit your account and take money. And yes, there is direct debit in some industries. And I think that the biggest challenge is basically this connectivity between the new e-wallets or the mobile money and the banks. Because as soon as the e-wallet is dependent on a card in order to get to your bank account, the e-wallet is nobody. It's only a consumer-facing brand, and is not even able to transact at the point of sale because the point of sale is not able to process its transactions in most of the countries. So I think this connectivity between your bank account and another payment instrument that is not a card is the biggest challenge in scaling other cardless payment methods. I think at the end, though, you see a lot of companies that, with the regulation that is coming in and other things that are going on, that basically create this connectivity. But literally, if you look down the road and you look at other territories like India with UPI and several others, real-time push payments are becoming the future, where basically you are instructing money to move from your account into somebody else's in real time, is basically where the future of payments is.
Excellent. So I like to ask sometimes some fun questions at the end to get a sense. And I know you work 24 hours a day in international relations and payments. But, outside of not being your typical payments company, what brings you joy?
What brings me joy? So I give you the answer that my wife requires me to give, which is the kids. When they wake me up at 5 a.m., when I can go to sleep in a normal hour. But generally, yes, kids bring me joy. I'm a big basketball fan. Mm-hmm. So I like...
What team? Which team?
The local team, the Tel Aviv team, Maccabi Tel Aviv in the EuroLeague. Yeah. So I'm a big basketball fan, and I love going to basketball games and watching basketball games. I woke up in the middle of the night to watch the NBA game that was early this morning. And cars. Like, I'm a car addict. I have a car collection, so I pretty much...
Any Swiss ones?
Oh yeah, I have some classic ones. I have a Ferrari Testarossa. I have a Lamborghini Diablo. So I really like every poster that I had on the wall of my room when I was a boy. I bought the car. I did it. Yeah.
Excellent. What book is in your carry-on bag?
I have the Warren Buffett book about, basically questions that people ask Warren Buffett and his answers. That's the latest book that I have.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So while you're driving in your Ferrari, what's on the playlist?
So it's a wrong question about the Ferrari, because in Ferrari you don't even have a stereo because you want to hear the engine. But, but when you drive a car that you don't want to hear the engine, actually mostly it will surprise you, rap music. So Notorious Big, Tupac, these type of things. Again, I'm stuck to the music that I heard as a kid. So,
excellent. That sounds really good. Any more questions from the audience that we might have on Slido? No? I think that's very good. We got a minute to go, but that was a very excellent chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Good.
Thank you.